On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, Keith and I talk about the Sixers' 42nd win of the season, their third along this 5-game trip, and a big defensive problem that they may have going forward. We'll discuss it next right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, you're Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-hosts, Keith Pompey, Sixers beat writer for TheInquirer.com. What's happening, Keith?
What's good, D? How you been, bro?
Pretty good, man. Live from Indiana, you are, as we break this down. Indianapolis. Is it cold there, man?
No, it was actually 70-something degrees today. It's crazy.
Wow, look at that. Now you head to Minneapolis. Well, thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including right here on YouTube, Locked On 76ers. We'll discuss the Sixers win over the Indiana Pacers, why they need to shore up their defense a little bit more, fast-paced game. Sometimes these things happen, but 143 points is a lot. 79 at the half for the opponent is a lot. We'll get into that. We'll also talk about Jalen McDaniels again, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, their return for the Minnesota game tonight, and also the Timberwolves in the final segment. Off day for them on Monday. They're waiting for the Sixers. All right, Keith, 147, 143, high pace, 290 points in this game, 79 and 78 at the half. I thought they had a little bit of an advantage going into this game with the close game that Indiana played on Sunday, defeating the Chicago Bulls in Chicago. But young legs of Indianapolis, Tyrese Halliburton, Nembhard, Wara, all of these players out there, they're just running. And Rick Carlisle just lets them go. I didn't expect 143 points, though, by the Sixers giving up. A win is a win. You have to have them some way on the road. It's a lot of points we've starting to see as of late between the Miami game, the Dallas game, and now even the Milwaukee game, and now this one with 143 points.
Yeah, it was a lot of points. And the one thing as I kept looking at is, in a perfect world, this would have been the game where you get out there, you blow them out, and then all of a sudden you start emptying your bench, and you look at it and you see James Harden, he shot he played 39 minutes and 32 seconds. That was the most minutes of everyone. And then we're talking about the guys 33. Joel Embiid, 37 minutes. Maxey, 37 minutes. Jalen McDaniels, 29 minutes. Shake Milton, 29 minutes. So that was a lot of minutes for these guys.
Specifically for Embiid and Harden.
Yeah, Embiid and Harden. But the thing is, like, the first game of a back-to-back, too. So to me, that was like the main problem. But like you said, a lot of points. A lot of points. So it was crazy, man. It got to a point where the game was basically decided. Doc Rivers said we made stops, but it was like there was one stretch where Indiana Pacers just was missing shots. Like they were coming down, throwing up some crazy stuff, miss it. Sixers go down the other way and score, and then they come back, miss it, score. The Sixers went up by 10, and then all of a sudden, game over. Now, granted, they started making shots again and made it interesting, but this score is a little bit misleading because they did score at the end to make it a little bit, but it was one of those things where it was like one stretch where a team missed 5 shots in a row, and that was the difference in the game.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out to me, and look, again, man, you know me and the viewers, the listeners, it's tough to win in the NBA 82-game schedule. You're on the road, a 5-game road trip. You're on the road. This is what, man, day 8 on the road for you guys. So as I look at this, man, the thing that really got me early on was how easy it was. Straight line drives to the basket. No resistance. And look, we could talk about Embiid on the back end. It's not his problem when the defenders on the perimeter are letting them get by. And I mean, everybody Tyrese Halliburton lived in the paint. Andrew Nembhard getting to the paint. Same thing for Jordan Warren. When TJ McConnell came in, he impacted the game the way that he did. As
No,
we know so well here in Philadelphia, 70 points in the paint for the Sixers defense, giving that up. And again, that's not on Embiid when they're pulling him away from the basket because of how they're running their offense. They got away with one tonight where it was one of those deals where I could see them losing this as the game is going on. They held on, so that shows you something maybe about the team getting the win. However, they need to tighten up some things.
Yeah, and we're talking about a team that's 8 games under 500, and the team that they won the other day. But this is a team that just came back like a crazy. We're talking about these crazy schedules. This is a team that just completed a road trip. This is their first game back. Like, again, the Sixers won the game, and that's all that matters. They're 2 games now. Yeah. They're 2 games behind the Boston Celtics. But this is supposed to be a beatdown performance. Like, it is. Like, this team is – the Pacers were supposed to come in tired, like, upset, complaining that they had to play the Sixers tonight. But yet and still, like you said, it was like a lot – it was like a track meet out there, man. It was just a track meet.
And I'll say this, and then we'll move on to the next segment as the Sixers get a few players back, we think, tomorrow against Minnesota. Remember when the Sixers just recently had their second night of a back-to-back? They took care of Miami, and they played Dallas the second night of a back-to-back, right, Keith? And while the Sixers were in it, they eventually gave up all the points that they did, 133, 126. But the point of it was, a lot of it was when we discussed some of the issues that they had, it was the second night of a back-to-back. And look, the Sixers did put up a $127 in the game, so it's not nothing. But when you look at that team and the Sixers trailed as much as they did, you expected the Sixers to have that same type of edge over the Pacers tonight, down, having them by 18 points or so. I think the biggest lead was 10 in the game when they got up 128-118 after Shake Milton hit that three-pointer. They called timeout in the fourth quarter, and that was it. But look, to your point, man, a win is a win is a win. However, it's something for them to look at in the future of how to tighten things up. I heard Doc Rivers say post-game, Keith, to you guys, yeah, you know what? I wish the defense was much, much better. He didn't make excuses for that. But basically he pointed out, we're just going to leave this one right here in the locker room and move on to Minnesota because the defensive performance was not there and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. All right, man, we'll come back. We'll get into Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker. We kind of talked about it yesterday that they could miss the game. And if so, who would start in their place? Jalen McDaniels, DeAnthony Melton did get the start. Why it was important also for them, Keith, to take that load management, maybe rest day, despite the two things that had them leave the game against the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll get into it next, why it's important to have them back for this game next right here, Locked On 76ers. And as you play a big game like the Sixers and, of course, the Pacers did, you need a little break. You need something. You need to recoup something there. And if you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and the calories after playing 48 minutes or 40 minutes like the Philadelphia point guard, you got to try Built Bar. And they're healthy. It's actually tasty. They're delicious. You won't think they're good for you. Perfect for a post-game snack. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're all 100% chocolate. Real chocolate. That's right, 100% real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter, brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how they do it, but they do it, and they only do so with 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now, Built.com has always been the place to go to get them. Now you can get them at your local Walmart and Sam's Club, making it easier for you all during your travels. How about head to your nearest Walmart today, get a 4-bar box, walk to the pharmacy section. That's where they are. Grab the box, cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Or if you want a bigger box, you can head to Sam's Club, 13-bar box of the hit flavors, brownie, batter, and churro. Knock those off after you work out, or just a quick snack while at work, or maybe even when you're sitting at home after work, you finally put your feet up and you can enjoy a quick treat. You can thank me later with Built. Welcome back. Locked On 76ers. That's Keith Pompey. I'm Devon Gibbons, and we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast for nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Keith, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker out, DeAnthony Melton, and Jalen McDaniels in. And Jalen McDaniels did not disappoint with 20 points, man. Very efficient, active. No play calls for him, but found a way to get 20 points on the board, man. You saw a difference in his style of play. We talked about it on our podcast on Monday of how we wanted to see him a little bit more, see how it worked out for him. In a starting role, Keith, it was really good, but it was also important to get the other two rests when you have a first night of a back-to-back tonight in Indianapolis. Now you head to Minneapolis to take on Minnesota. You should have some fresh legs with Harris and Tucker.
Yeah, you should. I mean, the thing about Harris and Tucker, like I was told, before the game that, they weren't going to play. I was also told that, it was one of the things that they were expected to return tomorrow. So, and one guy was like, knock on wood, one of those things. But so, I can see that. Like Tucker, I think is definitely like, as we talked about in yesterday's podcast, when I talked to him on Monday after shoot around, he was like, well, load management. So this could be a good one. So to me, even though he was saying he was questionable, to me, that was kind of sort of like load management. You bring that up, that means you're going to rest, right? But yeah, they should come back tomorrow. But the question is are they going to have their full roster tomorrow? Is Joel and is James going to play tomorrow? To me, those are like major questions and things that should have been asked yesterday, but they weren't because Doc Rivers has said that he is going to rest certain players on this trip. He also said that he's not paying attention to the standings, right? So with that being said, and I even asked him, I said, but does it depend on you're not paying attention, but let's say if you got a marquee game, does that mean, or a good opponent, does that mean guys are going to play that game? And he says no. So, so that's something to pay attention to tomorrow to see if these guys are going to play or not, talking about Harden and Embiid.
Why I think they should play is because you have Wednesday and Thursday off. You're back home. You take on the Portland Trail Blazers, and you have a few days off. They'll fly back on Tuesday night after the game, and they'll get in their beds. They'll sleep in. They'll have Wednesday off, get back on the practice floor maybe on Thursday, and get ready for the game on Friday. That's why I think they should play against the Minnesota Timberwolves. There's still seeding implications. Every win, it matters. And even though Cleveland helped you with Boston on Monday night by beating them in overtime, handing Boston their third straight loss, the Sixers need to keep Cleveland at arm's length and, keep them behind them as they've won a few games in a row themselves. You have the Knicks creeping up. Every win, every game matters. And I understand that they may have a little bit of a lead over these others, but they still have 18 games to play, 11 of which are on the road, and they're not easy. So there are going to be some losses along the way. And that's why I think it's important for them to play against Minnesota, why I think they should play. And you have Wednesday and Thursday off before the game on Friday back here in Philadelphia. So that's why I think they should play. But it was also, as you talked about with the load management comment, that's why it's important to have them tomorrow so you can maybe not have to lean on them for close to 40 minutes and Embiid and Harden, but you can give them maybe a little bit closer to 30, 32, somewhere around there, and Tucker and Harris, if those injuries aren't lingering, that they should be able to give it, a little extra out there on the floor themselves. And you got those young guys in Maxey and Melton and McDaniels. They can run. Paul Reed, they can run for you and take up some of those minutes for you in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Also, there's two things. He said he's not paying attention to the standings. I don't believe that 100%.
Neither do I.
I don't believe that. It sounds good to say it, but I don't believe it. And secondly, he needs to pay attention because, right about now, it looks like they may get that third seed. And if I'm him, I want that second seed if I can't get number one. You know what I mean? Or I really want number one and let those other two teams, Boston, Milwaukee, fight it out. But here's the deal, D. You are right about that. Them needing to play. First of all, there's two reasons why I think one reason why I think they need to play primarily is because they had so many injuries early on. They got Jaden McDaniels trying to get him in the mix. There's a lot of variables to whereas this team really needs to mesh. And I don't really want to hear about it once the playoffs come and it's like, well, we didn't work with this lineup and we didn't work with that lineup for a reason why a certain lineup is struggling, right? You need to work these things out now. Secondly, is I get it. They're going to be off on Wednesday. Thursday is probably going to be a practice day, right? Well, don't practice on Thursday. Like, I mean, just don't practice. Like, you may have some guys come in, have them to get some treatment. Certain guys, if they want to, they can get up some shots. Maybe you can do film study, this and that. Like, what they typically do is on their shoot around days, they typically go hard on shoot arounds, like getting in drills, doing that earlier in the morning. So if you have to do that, do that. But again, they can't afford to slide down any further, and they need to try to go up to at least number two, but preferably number one. And you got to mesh. So, I mean, you need to play these games because let's face it, Doc is saying what he's saying, but he's paying attention to the standings.
I think 2 is reachable. 1 seems a little bit out of reach in terms of my opinion there. Anything can happen. They're only 4 games back in Milwaukee, so anything can happen. And they have a game against them later on. Same with Boston. That's why I thought that Boston game last Saturday was a must-win because you talk about a tiebreaker situation. Mm-hmm. This is why. And even with that, you're 2 games back. You could potentially be 1 game back had you picked up that win last Saturday. And then the late April game that they have, which is the 4th to last game, that could, again, a tiebreaker. And if you have an identical record at the end, it would mean something. And in this case, it would mean something for Boston because they have already won the series 3-0 right now with 1 more game to play. So I'm with you. And we'll see who plays and who doesn't in this game against Minnesota. They should play. All right, Keith, final one on the other side. We'll give our keys to the game tonight, not knowing who's playing, but there are still some things that need to be done in order to defeat Minnesota tonight. We'll talk about it next right here, Locked On 76ers.
The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Why do I think it's time to download it, and why do I tell you it's the #1 sports book? Because that's what people always say about it. Now, only joking. Because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back for you if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use, right? Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and 3-point range. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Welcome back. Locked On 76ers. That's Keith Pompey. I'm Devon. Giving Sixers win on Monday night, 147-143, the first game of a back-to-back. Tonight, the Minnesota Timberwolves, Keith, are in 6th place in the Western Conference, fighting for their playoff lives also. And very curious to see what you think of this one. Just quickly, Minnesota right now, 6th. They are currently in the Western Conference standings. They are 34-32, half game in front of the Golden State Warriors, who are occupying the 5th spot, and half a game in front of Dallas and LA, the Clippers, who are currently in the 7th and 8th seed. So they're on a 3-game winning streak. They are led by, with Karl Anthony Towns out, Anthony Edwards. They made a trade. Mike Conley is in the mix now with them. And this team is playing, again, over the last 3, pretty good basketball. and they are trying to make sure that they stay in the top 6, Keith, and do what they need to do. So what are some key matchups for you here tonight of them looking for them to play against the Sixers?
I think, right now you can't let Ant-Man Anthony Edwards have a phenomenal game. You cannot allow him to come out there and try to get a bunch of points to beat you. I mean, it's going to be a little hard. It's funny. Can you imagine if Jalen McDaniel starts again? He'll probably start against his brother, who's a starting forward there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think whoever is guarding Anthony Edwards, you cannot allow him to get off. And the thing is, let's face it, if they go up with this normal starting lineup with Tobias, with PJ Tucker, Embiid, Harden, Maxey, I'm a little concerned about what Anthony Edwards is going to do, right? But if you take away that lineup, take away whoever's guarding him, the one that you always pay attention to is Rudy Gobert and Joel Embiid. There was a time once early on when Rudy Gobert used to shut down Embiid. That hasn't been the case for a while, for at least a couple of years now. So, those are the two things that I would like to pay attention to.
Yeah, Edwards is the one, really, especially with Towns out, making his first All-Star team this season. With Towns out, he's the guy. He's the franchise guy. And even with Towns back, my opinion, he's the franchise player now going forward, with all due respect to Karl Anthony Towns. Edwards is just that guy. So the matchup of Embiid and Gobert, I agree with you. That's another reason to play, man. Go out there and dominate this dude like you always do. Get up for this game and eliminate him. And then I need to see it bounce back a little in terms of the offensive production from James Harden. He had 20 points, so he made up for it with his poor shooting, 3 for 11. But I would like to see him against this team where you might have Mike Conley on him. I mean, Conley can't defend Tyrese Maxey, so is Conley going to be on Harden? And Conley's not the same defender as he used to be. That point guard matchup is going to be important for me to see where that goes. And also Kyle Anderson, man, he finds a way to just impact the game and help them out. So, yeah, exactly. He can lull you to sleep, and very curious to see that one. So protected basketball. They didn't turn the ball over a lot last night, Keith, but they turned it over enough where the who was it? The who did they just Indiana, where they were able to get points off the turnovers. And then again, stop the line drives, man. You talked about Anthony Edwards. Yeah. Stop those line drives to the basket undeterred. Stop them. They cannot be as easy as they were against Indiana. Cannot.
Yeah, they need to do something because, Ant-Man, that lineup, like I'm looking at, with Slow-Mo, Jaden McDaniels. You look at it and initially you say to yourself, like, okay, this team made a trade. They got rid of people. But then and people are hurt. But when you look at these names, you say to yourself, okay, well, maybe they're not as bad as I thought they were going to be. You know what I mean? So, they just got to handle their business. And we both agree to the people who they need to shut down.
Yep, absolutely. Well, listen, man, tomorrow we'll break it all down. We'll get into it of how this one played itself out and see if the Sixers can, in this 5-game road trip with 4 wins, maybe not the 5 games that they swept the previous 5-game trip, but this would be pretty good, Keith. Number one, I thought they would only need 3, but you have an opportunity to take 4 here. Be greedy. Go take that 4.
Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine, like, when they first went on this trip, people were like, oh, my gosh, the sky is falling.
Because they lost to Boston and Miami. Right. Yeah.
Now look at Boston.
Again, that game means something. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And again, tomorrow we'll get back with you and break things down. The final score between the Sixers and Timberwolves. But now make your second listen Locked On NBA, Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the league every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Keith, can you let the good folks know where they can find us?
Yep, wherever you get your podcast at, make sure you go and get this Locked On 76ers podcast. What you do is go to the YouTube channel and then you click on the Liberty Bell and you become a subscriber. My man D is pulling the shifts just like he did yesterday. D will be working from 6 p.m. to midnight doing a pre and a post game show. So make sure you listen to him before the game, and then right after the game, go back to him, and then you'll get my man breaking it down. Follow on Twitter at DivineG975. Follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers, and read my articles about last night's coverage and tonight's coverage at Enquirer.com.
We thank you all for hanging out with us on this Tuesday, getting ready for this game tonight. Let's see if they get it done. We'll be back tomorrow to discuss it. Thank you all. Thanks, Keith.
Peace, man.